There is a scene in Beldestine where the characters face a rather unique trial, and that involves giant lava snails the size of horses that can swim in lava pools, and their bodies burn you when you touch them. When my mom first read this scene, she told me, if anybody else had written this scene, I would have thought the snails were a bit odd. I would have thought it was a bit random. But knowing you, it makes perfect sense. So that brings us to the topic of today's video. Why snails? This is my pet garden snail, Reggie, or Sir Reginald if we're being formal. Now, he is not exactly the specific inspiration for the snails in Beldestine, but he does kind of have a role to play now. I have always had a fascination with snails. I thought they were so cute. I thought they were the coolest thing. And so when it came to Beldestine, I would have loved to incorporate snails in them. What ultimately inspired it was I saw a post, I think it was on Pinterest, about these volcanic snails that live in vents in the ocean and they can withstand hot temperatures. My villain in the Magi trilogy, King Brenton, creates fire and lava and he lives in a volcano, and I was like, this is perfect. We are including snails in Beldestine. This is going to be great. I got Reggie soon after I published Beldestine because I wanted an actual snail. I wanted a snail so badly, and here he is. So today I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about him because I would actually really recommend snails as a pet. What is Reggie? What does he eat? How do I take care of him? Why do I recommend snails as a pet? Why do I find them interesting? Reggie is a garden snail. All snails are hermaphrodites, meaning that they have both male and female organs. The reason I want to preface this is I was getting mixed feedback on whether or not snails could have babies on their own. Reggie has not had any children. He has not laid any eggs for me. However, I do believe that yes, technically speaking, under the right conditions, your singular snail could have babies by itself. Again, I haven't had that yet, but I do want to preface that out there that there are, you'll have to look it up how you want to personally deal with it, but that is something to keep in mind. That is really the only potential negative I have come up with for snails. Everything else is easy, they're funny, they're interesting, it is straightforward. Snails, at least garden snails like Reggie, he eats fruits, he eats veggies, he eats really anything that's not acidic. So for him, I feed mainly frozen vegetables that I thaw out. He loves green beans. He is a green bean guy. He absolutely adores them. He will munch and munch and munch on green beans. That and mangoes. Typically speaking, I just get like a mixture of veggies that are frozen and there is no seasoning, there's nothing on them. They are very sensitive on their skin. You can't touch them if you have soap on your hands. You can't touch them if there's any salt around, anything acidic. So tomatoes are a no, things like that. So basically what I do before I feed him anything is I make sure there's no seasoning or anything on it. And if I am not sure if it's too acidic, I look it up. Feeding him, it's easy. I put it in a bowl in this tank and then I take it out, it doesn't get moldy. At the end of the day, he gets it every night and we trade it out. His cage is a small terrarium, which I will show you guys in a minute. I'll give you a little mini cage tour. It's a little terrarium. It is a hard plastic. I would do either plastic or glass for snails because they climb on everything. I find him on the ceiling. I find him on the walls. I find him on the ground. He climbs over everything in there. He does need a certain level of humidity, so you will need to spray your snail's tank. You will need to keep it pretty damp, which brings the concept or the concern of mold to mind. I clean Reggie's tank out fully every month and I spot clean it other than that. And the reason I do the full change, everything, all the layers of dirt on there is so mold doesn't grow in there because you have to keep it humid. You have to keep it damp. He's constantly getting like vegetables in there on the ground, which I do remove, but it's just you want to keep on top of that because you want to keep the little guy healthy. You don't want any problems for him. He drinks out of a shallow water dish. Snails supposedly can just get stuck in the water dish if it's too deep. We'll say it that way. So keep their dish pretty shallow, but full so that they can drink. And other than that, it's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward. Snails like to have things to climb on. As I mentioned, they do secrete a slime. That's kind of how they move along. So, you know, I actually have slime covering my hand right now. I don't know if you can see it, but he goes on everything. They also need dirt in there with a certain pH level. I think it's just like your standard pH level. So I just use some sphagnum moss in there and he is good to go. That also helps with humidity because it keeps it damp. So it's really easy, it's really straightforward. Most of the supplies I get him are from the reptile section of the pet store. I go in there and I get, you know, just your standard like soil for animals, not regular garden soil, because sometimes there's pesticides in that and we don't want that on our snail. And from there, that is it. That is literally all you need to do to take care of your snail, with one exception. I am going to tell you my biggest snail fail so that you don't make it. Or if this does happen, you don't panic. And that involves your snail going dormant. A snail is pretty casual with its heat. It's about room temperature typically. It's about 72 to 77 degrees, or like just somewhere in that middle range is perfect for your snail. That's about room temperature. So technically speaking, if your rooms are that temperature, you don't really need a complex heat system for your snail. Reggie went dormant for several days when I first got him, and I started to panic, thinking I had failed, I had messed up. Did research, I found out heat was likely the issue. So I went to the pet store and I found a hermit crab heat pad, because turns out hermit crabs need exactly the same temperature as snails. So if you go to the store and you see a $20 hermit crab heat pad, you are good to go. Put it on Reggie's tank. The next morning he was up and out of dormantation. He went dormant again a few days after that, and again, I panicked, thinking, okay, what am I doing? I'm obviously doing something wrong. This is when I contacted the breeder that I got Reggie from, and they assured me it is fine, it is normal, it just means, you know, something's not quite favorable, or they're picky. Because it turns out some snails just go dormant, particularly in the winter. Reggie being one of them, he goes dormant periodically. If your snail is dormant and you're getting worried about them, they advised me to spritz him with water, not douse him, not drown him, not soak him, not use hot water, don't use anything super warm, just spritz him a little bit like room temperature water, and he should wake up. That did work for me here. Now I don't usually wake him up because he's not dormant because he's injured or anything like that. He just does it. But when I was concerned about it, woke him up, we're good to go. That was my biggest snail fail. I really thought I had messed up. Reggie is still here. He's alive and well 4 months after this. So, if your snail goes dormant, you can tell they're dormant because they're completely in their shell, and around the rim is this kind of dry, crispy looking slime layer. It honestly kind of looks like dried glue in a way. That means they are dormant. I say they shellac themselves to something. Don't panic. It is normal. It could mean something's not favorable for the condition, so check the pH, check the humidity, check the heat, check their environment. Is it not moist enough? Is it too moist? What is the problem? Or maybe they're just picky. This is Reggie's tank. I'm going to be cleaning it fully this weekend, and when I do that, I will be cleaning off all of the dried slime from the walls. To do that, I use distilled water, which is what is in this water bottle. I get a damp paper towel with it, and I clean it. I use distilled water so it doesn't leave streaks, and I never use chemicals because he has very sensitive skin, and that is not safe for him. Currently, he is chilling in his water bowl, which is also distilled water. That is just because I don't want to risk regular tap water in case there is anything in it that is sensitive for his skin. So I just get like a gallon of distilled water at the store and I use that for him. That is also how I spray his tank and keep it damp. Here are some of his sphagnum moss. This is his food left over from last night. Doesn't look like he ate, that is fine. He doesn't always eat a ton. I always keep eggshells in his tank for calcium because their shell is attached to their body and they create their own, I guess they keep it hard themselves. So to do that, they need calcium, which is why he has eggshells in there. And then that is really his full tank. I just have paper towels with a layer of dirt on top of it and then the moss on top of that. I'm looking into getting him some more little houses or something like that. I had a problem. He used to have a little log house. This is where I was talking about humidity coming in and being tricky. The house started to get moldy, so he lost his house privileges. So now he just has extra moss so that he can burrow in and hide if he would like. But for now, this is his tank, and he is I don't know what he's doing, but that is Reggie for you. So, to answer what I'm sure you are all asking yourselves, why are there giant snails in Beldestine? It's because snails are really cool. Thank you for watching this video. I hope if you are interested in getting a snail, it taught you a little bit about them. I would not call this a complete guide. It's kind of just me throwing it together for fun to talk about snails because I'm always willing and ready to talk about snails. If you're interested in maybe some snail facts, because there are some really cool, interesting things about them. Now I'm completely drawing blank everything that they could ever do that's cool, but I guess, did you know they eat their slime? They actually eat their slime to kind of reuse it, kind of like spiders do with their silk. They do it so they don't need to create as much. Reggie sometimes will be absolutely munching on his slime after he comes out of being dormant. This is normal. Snails eat their slime. If you want more facts like that, let me know. I'd love to do another video talking about snails because I just think they're really cool. I think they're fun. That's why I included them in my books. That is why they are an unfortunate character. And if you ever see a snail the size of a horse that has glowing orange lava filled inside of it and it's chasing you down like a bloodhound, run. Whatever time it is, whether it's morning, evening, or night, have a great day.